When Athena's own mother sells her at the pack auction for being barren, she expects to become just another servant until the feared Lycan king himself steps forward, his silver eyes burning with recognition as he claims her in front of hundreds of stunned shifters. But as her wolf begins to flicker with an ancient power thought extinct for centuries, Athena realizes her supposed curse might actually be the key to breaking a 300-year-old bloodline magic. What if the one thing that made her worthless to everyone else makes her priceless to him? Blood dripped from Athena's split lip onto the wooden auction block, each drop echoing like thunder in the silent valley. The rope around her wrists burned against her skin as hundreds of wolves watched her mother count silver coins with trembling fingers. This wasn't how 19-year-old girls were supposed to spend their birthday. She can cook, clean, and work the fields without complaint, her mother's voice cracked as she spoke to the crowd of potential buyers. Strong back, good teeth, never been sick a day in her life. Athena wanted to scream that she was standing right there, that she could speak for herself, but the hemp rope had been soaked in wolfsbane. Her inner wolf lay silent and weak, unable to fight back or flee. Around the clearing, pack leaders from 5 different territories studied her like she was a piece of meat at the market. The morning sun beat down mercilessly on the harvest moon gathering, making sweat mix with the blood on her face. She'd gotten the split lip from trying to run earlier, only to be tackled by her own cousin, who wanted his share of whatever money she'd bring. Family loyalty meant nothing when coins were involved. "What's wrong with her?" called out a gruff voice from the crowd. Alpha Marcus from the Redwood pack stepped forward, his nose wrinkling as he scented the air around her. "She smells different." Her mother's face went pale. This was the moment Athena had dreaded, the moment her shameful secret would be revealed to everyone. In a world where a woman's worth was measured by how many cubs she could produce, Athena was worthless. Her mother swallowed hard. "She's never shown signs of fertility. The pack healer examined her last month and declared her barren." Gasps echoed through the gathering. Several potential buyers immediately turned away, no longer interested in damaged goods. Others whispered among themselves, probably wondering why anyone would waste money on a female who couldn't provide children. Athena's cheeks burned with shame, but she forced herself to stand straighter. Maybe she couldn't have cubs, but she wouldn't let them see her break. She'd spent years listening to other girls her age talk about feeling their wolves stir with desire, about knowing they were ready to be mated and start families. While they bloomed into womanhood, Athena remained frozen in time, her body refusing to mature in the ways that mattered to their kind. "Still, she's young and healthy otherwise," her mother continued desperately, seeing the crowd's interest fading. "She learns quickly and follows orders well. Someone could use her for household work or farming." The sun climbed higher, making the autumn air thick and heavy. Athena's dress stuck to her back with sweat, and the wolfsbane made her feel sick to her stomach. She watched as other girls her age were sold to various packs, all of them going for good prices because they showed promise of bearing strong cubs. A young woman named Sarah went to the Mountain Ridge pack for 300 silver pieces. Another girl, barely 17, brought in 400 because the healer confirmed she was already fertile. Each sale made Athena's mother more nervous, her fingers tapping anxiously against her worn skirt. "Do I hear any offers?" her mother called out, her voice getting higher with panic. She may not be able to have cubs, but she's still valuable for other work. Silence stretched across the clearing like a death shroud. Birds stopped singing in the nearby trees. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see if anyone would want the defective girl on the auction block. Alpha Marcus shook his head and walked away. The leader of the Copper Creek pack followed suit, muttering something about not wasting money on broken merchandise. One by one, the other pack leaders began to lose interest, turning their attention to the next girl who would be brought up for sale. Athena's heart sank into her stomach. What would happen if nobody wanted to buy her? Her mother had already spent the money she expected to get, borrowing against future earnings to pay off debts. If Athena didn't sell, they'd both be in serious trouble with some very dangerous people. 50 silver, someone called out from the back of the crowd. Her mother's face lit up with relief, but Athena felt insulted. 50 silver was what you'd pay for a decent horse, not a human being. Still, it was better than nothing, and at least she'd have somewhere to go instead of being left homeless. 60, called another voice. Though it sounded reluctant, the bidding war that followed was pathetic compared to what the other girls had received. Athena's price climbed slowly to 80 silver, then 90, then finally stopped at 100. The winning bidder was an old farmer from the smallest pack in the territory, someone who probably just needed extra hands for the harvest season. Her mother counted the coins with shaking hands, tears streaming down her face. Whether she cried from relief or shame, Athena couldn't tell. Maybe both. The transaction was almost complete when everything changed. A new scent drifted through the clearing, so powerful it made every wolf present freeze in their tracks. Ancient pine mixed with midnight rain and something darker, something that spoke of power beyond imagination. The very air seemed to grow thick with electricity, making the hair on Athena's arms stand up straight. Nobody move. The voice that spoke those words carried enough authority to stop a charging bear in its tracks. Deep as rolling thunder, smooth as aged whiskey, it belonged to someone used to being obeyed without question. Every wolf in the clearing immediately dropped their gaze to the ground, including the pack leaders who had been acting so important just moments before. Athena couldn't see who had spoken because he stood somewhere behind her, but she felt his presence like heat from a forge. Her weakened wolf stirred for the first time in hours, responding to something in that commanding voice that called to her on a level she didn't understand. Heavy footsteps approached the auction block, each one deliberate and measured. The crowd parted like water before a ship, creating a clear path for the newcomer. Even without turning around, Athena knew this was someone incredibly important, someone whose word carried the weight of law in these territories. "Turn around, girl." The command wasn't harsh, but it left no room for argument. Athena slowly pivoted on the wooden platform, her bound hands making it difficult to keep her balance. When she finally faced the speaker, her breath caught in her throat like a trapped bird. The man standing before her was easily the largest person she'd ever seen, built like he could wrestle bears for fun and win. Dark hair fell across his forehead in waves, framing a face that looked like it had been carved from granite by an artist who specialized in dangerous beauty. But it was his eyes that made her knees go weak, silver as moonlight on water, ancient as the mountains themselves, and currently fixed on her with an intensity that made her feel completely exposed. "Your Majesty," her mother stammered, dropping into such a deep bow that her forehead nearly touched the dirt. "We didn't know you were attending the gathering. Please forgive us for not greeting you properly." "Majesty?" Athena's mind reeled as the pieces clicked into place. This was Kieran Nightfall, the Lycan king himself, ruler of all the packs in 7 territories. Stories about him had been whispered around campfires since she was a child. Tales of a man who could kill with a look, who commanded respect from every supernatural creature for 1,000 miles in any direction. "Stand up," he told her mother without taking his eyes off Athena. "What's your name, girl?" "Athena Ashwood, Your Majesty." Her voice came out steadier than she'd expected, though her heart hammered against her ribs like a caged animal. "And why are you tied up like a criminal?" The question sent ripples of nervous energy through the crowd. Nobody questioned the auction process, certainly not someone being sold. It was just how things worked in their world. Families with too many mouths to feed sold their extra children to packs that needed workers. Everyone accepted it as normal. "She's being sold, Your Majesty." The old farmer who'd won the bidding spoke up hesitantly. "I've already paid for her." Kieran's silver gaze shifted to the farmer, and the man immediately began sweating despite the cool morning air. "Did I ask you?" "No, Your Majesty, my apologies." Those dangerous eyes returned to Athena, studying her face with an expression she couldn't read. "You didn't answer my question." "Why are you tied up?" "Because I tried to run away," Athena admitted, figuring honesty was probably her best option when talking to someone who could end her life with a snap of his fingers. "I don't want to be sold." Murmurs spread through the gathering. Nobody talked back to pack leaders, let alone the Lycan king. Her mother looked ready to faint from embarrassment, probably wishing she'd never given birth to such a troublesome daughter. Interesting. Kieran stepped closer to the platform, close enough that she could smell his intoxicating scent more clearly. "And why don't you want to be sold?" The question hit her like a slap. How was she supposed to answer that? Because she wanted to choose her own path in life? Because she dreamed of being more than just someone's servant? Because despite being labeled defective, she still had hopes and dreams of her own? "Because I'm not property," she said finally, lifting her chin despite the fear coursing through her veins. The silence that followed was so complete you could have heard a pine needle drop. Even the birds seemed to hold their breath, waiting to see how the Lycan king would react to such bold words from a girl who was supposed to know her place. Kieran's lips curved upward in what might have been a smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. "No, you're not." With movements too quick to follow, he stepped onto the platform and used his claws to slice through her bonds. The rope fell away, leaving angry red marks around her wrists where the wolfsbane had burned her skin. Her wolf immediately began to recover, stretching and yawning inside her chest like she was waking up from a long nap. "Your Majesty, what are you doing?" her mother asked, in a voice barely above a whisper. "I'm making a purchase." He pulled out a leather pouch that clinked with the sound of coins. "How much for her?" The old farmer stepped forward nervously. "I already paid 100 silver, Your Majesty." "I wasn't talking to you." Kieran's voice carried a warning that made several people in the crowd take a step backward. "I was talking to her mother." Athena's mother stared at the pouch like it contained all the treasure in the world. What would be a fair price, Your Majesty?" "Name your amount." The words hung in the air like smoke from a fire. Everyone knew the Lycan king was wealthy beyond imagination, but nobody had expected him to take interest in a defective girl from a poor family. Whispers started up again, people speculating about his motives. 500 gold, her mother said in a rush, naming a price so high it was almost insulting. Kieran didn't even blink. He counted out the coins and placed them in her mother's trembling hands. Done. 500 gold. Athena's head spun as she tried to process the amount. That was enough money to buy a small house or feed a family for several years. Why would anyone pay that much for her, especially someone who knew about her condition? "But Your Majesty," Alpha Marcus called out from the crowd, "she's barren." The healer confirmed it. What possible use could you have for her? The temperature in the clearing seemed to drop 10 degrees as Kieran's attention fixed on the Alpha. "Are you questioning my decisions?" "No, Your Majesty. I would never presume to. Good. Because what I do with my property is my business, not yours." Property. The word stung, even though Athena knew that's technically what she was now. She'd gone from being her mother's burden to the Lycan King's possession in the span of 5 minutes, and she still had no idea why he'd wanted her in the first place. What did the most powerful man in 7 territories want with a broken girl who couldn't even fulfill the basic purpose her kind expected from females? The iron chains around Athena's wrists felt heavier than mountains as Kieran's black carriage rolled through the forest. She pressed her face against the small window, watching her old life disappear behind towering pine trees. Her stomach twisted with fear and something else she couldn't name. "Stop the carriage," came Kieran's deep voice from across from her. The wheels ground to a halt. Athena's heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. Was he going to hurt her already? Change his mind and leave her in the wilderness? Instead, Kieran reached over and unlocked her chains with a small silver key. The metal fell away with a soft clink. "Why?" she whispered, rubbing her sore wrists. "Because you're not my prisoner," he said simply. "You can run if you want. I won't stop you." Athena stared at him. No one had ever given her a choice before. Her mother decided everything. The pack decided everything. Now this dangerous stranger was offering her freedom? Where would I go? The words slipped out before she could stop them. Anywhere you choose. His silver eyes seemed to see right through her soul. But I hope you'll come with me willingly. The carriage door swung open. Cool mountain air rushed in, carrying scents of wildflowers and freedom. Athena could jump out right now, run into the forest, never see another pack auction or hear another cruel word about her broken wolf. But something in Kieran's voice made her pause. Something that sounded almost like hope. "What do you want from me?" she asked. "Time will tell," he said. "But first, you need to eat." He pulled out a cloth bundle filled with fresh bread, cheese, and sweet honey cakes. Athena's mouth watered. She hadn't eaten since yesterday morning. "Go ahead," Kieran encouraged. "You're safe now." As Athena bit into the soft bread, tears she didn't expect began rolling down her cheeks. When was the last time someone had fed her without demanding something in return? The carriage started moving again. Through the window, Athena saw they were climbing higher into the mountains. Dark cliffs rose on both sides like giant walls. The air grew colder and thinner. "Where are we going?" she asked between bites of honey cake. "Home," Kieran replied. "To Shadowmere territory." Athena had heard whispers about Shadowmere. They said it was a place where the moon never set, where wolves ran free under eternal silver light. They said Kieran ruled there like an ancient king, with power older than memory. "Are you really the Lycan king?" The question tumbled out before she could think. Kieran's mouth curved into the smallest smile. "What do you think?" Before Athena could answer, a howl echoed through the mountains, then another, and another. The sound made her wolf stir restlessly inside her chest. "Border Patrol," Kieran explained, but his body had gone tense. "They're early." The carriage picked up speed, wheels bouncing over rough stone roads. Athena grabbed the window frame to steady herself as they rounded a sharp corner. That's when she saw them. 6 enormous wolves raced alongside the carriage, their fur ranging from silver to deepest black. Their eyes glowed like stars in the growing darkness. They moved with deadly grace, keeping perfect pace with the spinning wheels. "Your pack?" Athena breathed. "Part of it," Kieran said. His voice held pride and something else. Warning, maybe? The wolves howled again, a sound of welcome that made Athena's heart skip. Her broken wolf responded with a tiny whimper that surprised them both. Kieran's head snapped toward her. "What was that?" "I don't know," Athena whispered. Her wolf had never made a sound before, not once in 20 years. The carriage crested a hill, and Athena gasped. Shadowmere spread below them like a dream made of stone and starlight. Tall towers reached toward the sky, connected by graceful bridges that seemed to float in midair. Gardens filled with silver flowers cascaded down the mountainsides in terraced waterfalls of beauty, and everywhere, wolves moved through the streets like flowing shadows. "It's beautiful," Athena breathed. "It's yours now," Kieran said quietly. The words hit her like lightning. Hers? How could anything this magnificent belong to someone like her? The carriage rolled through gates made of black iron, twisted into the shapes of running wolves. Guards nodded respectfully as they passed. But Athena caught their curious stares. News of the king's strange purchase would spread quickly. They stopped in front of a palace that looked carved from a single piece of midnight stone. Steps led up to doors tall enough for giants, decorated with silver moons and stars. "Come," Kieran said, stepping out of the carriage. Athena hesitated. Once she walked through those doors, there would be no going back. No more pretending she was just a regular wolf who happened to be broken. A servant girl appeared at the carriage door. She was about Athena's age, with kind brown eyes and a gentle smile. "Welcome home, miss," the girl said, offering her hand. "I'm Maya. I'll help you settle in." Home. The word echoed strangely in Athena's ears. She took Maya's hand and stepped out of the carriage. The mountain air was sharp and clean, filled with scents she'd never smelled before. Magic seemed to dance on the wind like invisible music. "This way," Maya said, leading her toward the palace steps. As they climbed, Athena heard whispers from the shadows, voices discussing the king's mysterious new, what? Servant? Prisoner? Something else entirely? At the top of the steps, Kieran waited by the open doors. Torchlight flickered across his strong features, making him look like a figure from ancient legends. "Ready?" he asked. Athena nodded, though her knees felt like water. They walked through the doors together, and Athena's breath caught in her throat. The entrance hall soared high above them, painted with murals of wolves running beneath stars. Silver chandeliers cast dancing light across polished floors that reflected like dark mirrors. "Tomorrow you'll meet the pack," Kieran said. "Tonight you rest." But as Maya led her up a winding staircase toward what would be her new room, Athena heard footsteps following behind them, whispers in the shadows, eyes watching from doorways. She was in the heart of the most powerful pack in 7 territories now. Morning came with the sound of snarling. Athena jolted awake in her new bed, heart racing as angry voices echoed through the palace walls. She rushed to her window and looked down at the courtyard below. 20 wolves faced each other in a tight circle, their hackles raised and teeth bared. At the center stood a woman with flame-red hair and eyes like green fire. She was shouting something Athena couldn't quite hear. A soft knock interrupted her watching. Maya entered with a breakfast tray and a worried expression. "Don't mind Seraphina," Maya said, setting down fresh bread and jam. "She's always been dramatic." "Seraphina?" Athena asked. "The king's. Well, she thinks she should be his mate." Maya lowered her voice. "She's not happy about you being here." Through the window, Athena watched the red-haired woman point up at her room. Even from this distance, the hatred in her gaze was clear as mountain water. "She wants to fight me?" Athena asked. "She wants to know why you're here," Maya corrected. "We all do." The honest answer hit Athena like a cold slap. She didn't know why she was here either. Kieran had bought her like a prized horse, brought her to his magnificent palace. And then, what? What did he actually want? "Get dressed," Maya said gently. "The king wants to see you after breakfast." Athena's stomach dropped. "Did I do something wrong?" "No," Maya smiled. "I think he wants to show you around." But as Athena pulled on the simple blue dress Maya had brought, she heard more angry voices from the courtyard, more wolves gathering, more questions she couldn't answer. An hour later, Kieran appeared at her door, wearing clothes that made him look less like a king and more like a regular person. Dark pants, a simple shirt, boots meant for walking instead of ruling. "Good morning," he said. "Sleep well?" "There were people fighting in the yard," Athena replied honestly. Kieran's jaw tightened. "Ignore them. They'll adjust." He led her through hallways filled with paintings of ancient battles and legendary wolves. Servants bowed as they passed, but Athena caught their curious stares. Some looked friendly, others did not. "Where are we going?" she asked. "To see what you're good at," Kieran replied. They walked outside into gardens that smelled like heaven. Silver roses climbed stone walls, while fountains sang with falling water. Paths wound between flower beds toward different parts of the palace grounds. "Try this," Kieran said, stopping beside a training ring where young wolves practiced fighting moves. Athena watched them circle each other, testing for weaknesses. Their movements were smooth as water, deadly as winter storms. "I don't know how to fight," she admitted. "Everyone can learn," Kieran said. He called over a teenage boy with sandy hair. "Marcus, show our guest some basic moves." Marcus looked uncertain. "Sir, if she's not trained..." "She's tougher than she looks," Kieran said firmly. For the next hour, Marcus taught Athena how to block punches and escape from holds. Her body felt awkward and slow compared to the other wolves, but something inside her began to wake up. Not her wolf, something different. Something that noticed patterns and weaknesses. "You think differently," Marcus said after she'd successfully escaped his third attempt to grab her. Most people try to fight strength with strength. You find ways around it. Kieran was watching from the sidelines, his expression thoughtful. Next, they visited the kitchens where cooks prepared meals for hundreds of pack millionthenas. The head cook, a stern woman named Betsy, handed Athena a knife and a pile of vegetables. "Let's see what you can do," Betsy said. Athena had helped her mother cook for years. Her hands knew how to slice onions paper thin and dice carrots into perfect squares. But here, she found herself suggesting new combinations. What if they added mountain herbs to the stew? What if they tried cooking the bread in clay ovens instead of metal ones? "Interesting," Betsy muttered, tasting a sauce Athena had suggested improving with wild honey. They visited the stables next, where horses stamped and snorted in their stalls. Athena had never worked with horses before, but somehow she understood their language. The way they flicked their ears, how they showed fear or trust through the set of their shoulders. A stallion that everyone said was impossible to handle let her approach without biting or kicking. She simply moved slowly, spoke softly, and waited for him to decide she wasn't a threat. "Remarkable," said the stable master. With each stop, Athena felt something growing inside her chest. Not confidence exactly, but curiosity. For the first time in her life, people were asking what she thought instead of telling her what she was worth. But not everyone was impressed. As they walked past the dining hall, conversation stopped. Wolves stared openly now, some with wonder, others with suspicion. Athena heard whispered fragments bought her at auction. "King's lost his mind. What's so special about a Barren wolf?" The words stung like bee stings, but Kieran kept walking as if he hadn't heard. His presence beside her felt like a shield against their judgment. They ended up in a tower room filled with books and maps. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, making dust motes dance like tiny stars. "This is my favorite place," Kieran said, running his fingers along leather-bound spines. "What do you think?" Athena had never seen so many books in one place. Her mother had owned 3, a cookbook, a book of prayers, and a manual about raising chickens. Here, hundreds of volumes reached from floor to ceiling. She pulled one out randomly and opened it. The pages showed detailed drawings of different wolf breeds, with notes written in careful handwriting. "You can read," Kieran observed. It wasn't a question. "My mother taught me," Athena said. "She said even broken wolves should know their letters." "Your mother was wrong about many things," Kieran said quietly. "But she was right about that." He pulled down a map and spread it across a wooden table. It showed territory stretching far beyond anything Athena had imagined. Mountains, forests, rivers, and cities she'd never heard of. "Show me where you lived," he said. Athena studied the map until she found the small valley where her pack had scraped out their existence. It looked tiny compared to Shadowmere's vast territory. "Here," she pointed. Kieran nodded. "And here," he pointed to a region marked with red ink, "is where our enemies gather." "Enemies?" Athena looked closer at the map. "The Ironwood Pack has been testing our borders for months," Kieran explained. "They think we've grown soft, too comfortable." His finger traced a line between territories. They're wrong, of course, but conflicts like these require strategy, not just strength. He looked at her carefully. "What would you do?" Athena stared at the map, her mind racing. She'd spent years watching pack politics from the outside, seeing how pride and anger led to stupid decisions. "I'd make them think you were weak," she said slowly. "Pull your border guards back just enough to make them confident. Let them push forward into territory you've already prepared to defend." Kieran's eyebrows rose. "A trap." "Not a trap," Athena corrected. "A choice. Give them rope to hang themselves with their own greed." For a long moment, Kieran stared at her. Then he smiled. The first real smile she'd seen from him. "Very good," he said. "Very good indeed." But their conversation was interrupted by shouting from the courtyard below. Through the window, Athena saw Seraphina marching toward the palace doors with a dozen wolves behind her. "She's coming here," Athena said. Kieran sighed. Yes, I suppose it's time for introductions. As angry footsteps echoed up the stone stairs, Athena's wolf stirred restlessly. Whatever was about to happen, she had the feeling her peaceful morning was about to end. The ancient training grounds lay hidden deep beneath the castle, where moonlight never touched stone and secrets grew like moss in darkness. Athena's bare feet slapped against cold marble as she ran from something far worse than any monster the truth about herself. Behind her, Kieran's heavy footsteps echoed like thunder, but she couldn't face him, not after what had just happened in the Great Hall. Stop running from me! His voice boomed through the tunnels, rough with something that might have been pain. She pressed her back against a pillar, chest heaving. The silver pendant around her neck pulsed with warmth, as if it had a heartbeat of its own. 3 hours ago, she'd been serving dinner to the pack elders. Now, everything she thought she knew lay in pieces around her feet. You lied to me, she whispered when his shadow fell across her hiding spot. Kieran stepped into the dim light cast by glowing crystals embedded in the walls. His shirt was torn, revealing deep scratches across his chest, marks her claws had left when her wolf had tried to claw its way out of her skin during their argument. I never lied. His silver eyes held exhaustion that seemed centuries old. I just didn't tell you everything. Same thing, Athena's voice cracked. You knew what I was before you bought me. You knew about the Moonfire bloodline, about the curse, about everything, and you let me think I was broken. The silence stretched between them like a bridge neither wanted to cross. Somewhere above, she could hear the pack gathering for the evening meal, their laughter and conversations a sharp contrast to the heavy weight pressing down on her chest. Show me your wolf again, Kieran said quietly. No, the word came out harsher than she intended. I'm tired of being some puzzle you're trying to solve. That's not what you are. Then what am I? She stepped away from the pillar, anger giving her courage. Because 3 days ago, I was Barren. Yesterday, I was your property. This morning, I was some kind of magical key. What am I going to be tomorrow? Kieran's jaw tightened. You're going to be whatever you choose to be. Easy words from someone who's never had their choices stolen. You think I chose this? His laugh held no humor. You think I wanted to spend 3 centuries watching my bloodline die? You think I enjoyed knowing that every woman I might care about would either fear me or want me only for my crown? The raw honesty in his voice made her wolf whimper. Athena had spent so many years focused on her own pain that she'd forgotten others might carry scars just as deep. The first time I saw you, he continued, moving closer with the careful steps of someone approaching a wounded animal. Your wolf called to mine in a way I'd never experienced. Not because of some ancient magic or bloodline curse, because you looked at me like I was just a person, not a king or a legend or a solution to your problems. I didn't know who you were. Exactly. He stopped just out of arm's reach. When was the last time someone saw me instead of my title? Athena's anger began to crack around the edges. She'd been so busy feeling betrayed that she hadn't considered what his life might actually be like, always wondering if people cared about him or just what he could give them. The curse is real, she said. It wasn't a question. 300 years ago, my ancestor broke a sacred bond with the moon goddess. She cursed our line to slowly fade away until we learned the true meaning of connection. His hand moved toward her, then stopped. Not just physical connection, soul connection. And you think I'm the answer. I think you're the first person I've met who makes me want to find out. The honesty in his voice did something strange to her chest, like a knot loosening that she hadn't realized was there. But doubt still whispered in the corners of her mind. What if I can't be what you need me to be? What if you can? The question hung between them like a challenge. Athena closed her eyes and let herself really feel her wolf for the first time without fear. The creature inside her wasn't broken, it was cautious, waiting, testing the safety of the world before showing its true self. I can feel her, she whispered. My wolf. She's different than I thought. Show me. This time, when Kieran asked, it didn't feel like a command or a test. It felt like an invitation. Athena took a deep breath and let the change begin. But instead of the painful, incomplete shifts she'd always experienced, this time her wolf rose to meet her halfway. Light exploded around her as silver flames danced across her skin, and when the transformation completed, she stood as something no one had seen in centuries. Her moonfire wolf was larger than she'd expected, with fur that shifted between silver and white like captured starlight. Power hummed through her bones, ancient and wild and completely her own. Kieran's intake of breath was sharp with wonder. His own shift came smooth and fast, revealing the massive black wolf she'd seen before. But this time, when he approached, her wolf didn't flicker or fade. Instead, she stood steady, meeting his silver gaze with confidence that felt as natural as breathing. When they shifted back, both breathing hard from the magic that had passed between them, Kieran reached out and cupped her face in his hands. "Beautiful," he murmured. "Useful, you mean?" "No." His thumbs brushed across her cheekbones. "Beautiful, powerful, real. Everything the curse tried to steal from both of us." The pack meeting that would change everything began with blood on marble floors and ended with 3 centuries of lies cracking open like broken eggs. Athena stood at Kieran's side in the great hall, her silver dress feeling like armor as 200 wolves watched her with eyes that held everything from curiosity to outright hostility. "Before we begin," Elder Thorn's voice cracked with age, "there are those among us who question whether this outsider belongs at our king's side." Seraphina stepped forward from the crowd, her red hair blazing like fire in the torchlight. "I challenge her right to stand there." Gasps rippled through the assembled pack. A direct challenge to the king's choice hadn't happened in living memory. Athena felt Kieran tense beside her, his wolf pressing close to the surface, but she placed a gentle hand on his arm. "I accept," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the sudden silence. "Athena, no," Kieran growled. "You don't understand what you're, I understand perfectly." She stepped forward, meeting Seraphina's fierce gaze without flinching. "She's questioning my worth. I've been questioning it my whole life. Time to settle it once and for all." The ancient laws required the challenge to be more than simple combat. 3 tests: strength, wisdom, and sacrifice. Each would push the challenger to their limits, while the pack watched and judged. The first test came in the training yard behind the Great Hall. Physical strength, measured not by violence, but by endurance. Seraphina was a seasoned warrior with muscles like steel cables and scars that told stories of survival. Athena was still learning to trust her own power. They began with weighted stones, lifting and carrying burdens across an increasingly difficult course. Sweat beaded on Athena's forehead as she struggled with loads that Seraphina handled easily. Murmurs from the watching pack grew louder: disappointment, mockery, the quiet satisfaction of those who'd never believed in her. But as the weights grew heavier and the distances longer, something shifted. Athena's moonfire wolf began to surface, lending her strength that came from determination rather than muscle. When Seraphina finally collapsed under a load meant to break both of them, Athena kept walking, her steps steady and sure. "First test goes to the outsider," Elder Thorn announced, surprise clear in his ancient voice. The second test moved to the library, where wisdom would be measured through knowledge of pack law and history. Here, Seraphina should have dominated. She'd been raised on these stories, trained in these traditions since childhood. Athena had learned them in stolen moments between chores. The questions came fast and brutal. What law governed territorial disputes? How many pack alliances had been broken in the War of Silver Fangs? What ritual sealed a mating bond under the full moon? Athena answered each one, her voice growing stronger with every correct response. But it was her answer to the final question that silenced the room completely. "What is the true purpose of an alpha's mate?" Elder Thorn asked. Seraphina gave the expected response. To bear strong children and support her mate's rule. Athena shook her head. To be the bridge between the pack and the moon's wisdom. To see what others cannot see. To heal what others cannot heal. To stand as both shield and beacon when darkness comes. The elder's eyes widened. Where did you learn such words? From the moon herself, Athena replied, touching the pendant at her throat. Some knowledge isn't learned. It's Athena. A ripple of unease passed through the crowd. Those were the words of the old religion, from before the curse, when moonfire wolves had served as spiritual guides for their packs. The third test would be the hardest: sacrifice. Each challenger had to give up something precious to prove their dedication to the pack's welfare. Seraphina went first, kneeling before Kirin and offering her warrior's blade, the weapon that had been passed down through 5 generations of her family. It was a meaningful gesture, representing her willingness to serve, even if it meant giving up her identity as a fighter. Then all eyes turned to Athena. What could she sacrifice? She owned nothing of value, had no family legacy to offer, no treasured possessions to lay at the pack's feet. Instead, she closed her eyes and reached deep inside herself to the place where her wolf lived. With careful hands, she began to separate the silver threads of power that made her special, that made her the key to breaking Kirin's curse. What are you doing? Kirin's voice was sharp with alarm. Proving my worth, she said softly. I sacrifice my moonfire abilities. I give them to the pack, freely and without condition. The silver flames that always danced just beneath her skin began to fade. The ancient power that marked her as unique started flowing outward, touching every wolf in the hall, sharing her gift instead of hoarding it. Stop! The voice that rang out wasn't Kirin's, it was Elder Thorn's, filled with a fear that made the old wolf's hands shake. Child, you don't know what you're doing. But Athena did know. As her power spread through the pack bond, she felt something she'd never experienced before, the true connection her wolf had been seeking. Not the desperate need to prove herself worthy, but the joy of belonging, of being part of something larger than her own pain. The silver flames didn't disappear. Instead, they multiplied, flowing through the pack bond and awakening dormant abilities in wolves who hadn't felt such power in generations. Healers rediscovered their gifts, scouts found their senses sharpened, and elders felt strength returning to their aging bones. The curse, someone whispered, it's breaking. Athena opened her eyes to find the entire pack on their knees, including Seraphina, whose challenge had become something entirely different. Not a fight for dominance, but a catalyst for transformation. I withdraw my challenge, Seraphina said, tears streaming down her face. Forgive me. I didn't understand what you were. But Athena was looking at Kirin, whose silver eyes held wonder and something that might have been love. The moon knew, he said quietly. She always knew. You weren't broken, Athena. You were waiting for the right moment to heal all of us. The ground shook beneath everyone's feet as Athena's silver wolf burst into flames that didn't burn. Seraphina stumbled backward, her challenge dying on her lips as waves of ancient magic rolled across the winter solstice gathering like invisible thunder. This can't be happening, whispered an elder from the crowd, his weathered face pale with shock. But it was happening. The girl everyone called broken now blazed with power older than the oldest stories. Her wolf form grew larger, brighter, more solid with each passing second. The flickering creature from before had been just a shadow of what she truly was. Kirin stepped closer to Athena, his own massive black wolf rising to match her energy. When their wolves touched noses, sparks of silver and gold danced between them like tiny stars. The pack felt it in their bones. This wasn't just any mating bond. This was the return of something legendary. I challenge that claim. Seraphina's voice cracked with desperation. Moonfire or not, she still can't give the king children. What Luna can't produce heirs? The words hit Athena like physical blows. For a moment, the old shame tried to creep back in. 20 years of being told she was worthless didn't disappear in an instant, even with magic blazing around her. "You're right," Athena said quietly, her human form returning as the flames settled into a gentle glow around her skin. "I couldn't have children before." The pack held its breath. Some nodded, thinking Seraphina had won. "But you know what I learned tonight?" Athena's voice grew stronger. "My body wasn't broken. It was waiting for the right bond, the right magic, the right time." She placed her hand over her stomach, and a soft silver light pulsed beneath her palm. "I'm carrying the king's child right now, the first Moonfire heir in 300 years. Gasps echoed across the gathering. Even Seraphina's mouth fell open in shock. Kieran's hand covered Athena's, his smile bright enough to light the darkness. The curse demanded a Moonfire mate to break it. Not just any wolf, but one whose magic had been sleeping, protected, kept pure for this moment. "That's impossible," Seraphina stammered. "She was tested." The healers tested a girl whose wolf was still hiding," interrupted the oldest pack elder, stepping forward with tears in his ancient eyes. "I rem Athena the prophecies from my grandfather's time. The Moonfire wolf would appear barren until she found her true mate. Her magic would sleep to protect the bloodline until the right moment." Athena felt the truth of those words resonate through every fiber of her being. The years of shame, the pain of rejection, the loneliness, it had all been protection. Her magic had been keeping her safe, keeping her pure, waiting for this exact moment. "I spent my whole life thinking I was broken," she said, looking around at the faces that had once shown only pity or disgust. Now they watched her with wonder and respect. "But I was never broken. I was just becoming." The pack began to shift around her, literally and figuratively. Some dropped to one knee in respect. Others bowed their heads in apology for how they treated her. The energy in the clearing changed from confrontation to celebration. Seraphina stood alone now, her supporters melting away like snow in spring. "This doesn't change anything," she said, but her voice held no conviction. "It changes everything," Kieran replied, his arm wrapping protectively around Athena's shoulders. "My queen has not only broken our curse, she's brought back magic the world thought lost forever." Athena looked at her mother, who stood frozen at the edge of the crowd. The woman who had sold her daughter now stared in horror at what she'd given away. But Athena felt no anger anymore, just sadness for a mother who would never understand what she'd lost. "You tried to sell what you thought was worthless," Athena called out to her. "But you can't put a price on destiny." The words hung in the cold winter air like a final judgment. Her mother turned and disappeared into the forest, unable to face what she'd done. As the night wore on, Pack Miliphanes approached Athena one by one. Some asked forgiveness for their cruelty. Others shared their own stories of feeling different or broken. The girl who had once stood alone now found herself surrounded by others who understood the pain of not fitting in. "What happens now?" asked a young wolf who had been rejected by his birth pack for being too small. Athena smiled, her hand still glowing softly over her growing child. "Now we build something new. A pack where different doesn't mean worthless, where everyone has a place." The winter solstice celebration continued around them, but everything had changed. The Shadowmere pack now had a true Luna Queen, one whose power came not from breeding potential, but from the strength to transform pain into purpose. 6 months after the winter solstice revelation, Athena waddled through the pack's new healing center, her rounded belly making simple walking an adventure. The building buzzed with activity as wolves from dozens of territories sought help from the legendary Moonfire Luna. "Careful there, Your Majesty," laughed Dr. Sarah Chen, the human healer they'd brought in to help with both regular medicine and magical healing. "That little one is getting restless." Athena pressed her hand to her stomach, feeling her daughter kick with surprising strength. She knows something's happening today. Moonfire babies are connected to pack emotions even before birth. Today marked the grand opening of their sanctuary for broken wolves shifters who had been rejected, abandoned, or cast out by their original packs. What started as Athena's personal mission had grown into something that attracted wolves from across the continent. Marcus Reeves, the small wolf from that night 6 months ago, now served as the center's coordinator. His size, once seen as a weakness, made him perfect for working with frightened newcomers who might be scared of larger wolves. "We have 17 new arrivals this week," he reported, his pride obvious in his voice, including a family whose son shifts into a fox instead of a wolf. His birth pack was going to exile him. "Fox shifters are incredible trackers," Athena replied, making notes on her tablet. "The Border Patrol team will love having him." Through the large windows, she could see the training grounds where Kieran worked with a group of teenage wolves. Some had been too aggressive for their birth packs, others too gentle. A few shifted into unusual colors that their families found shameful. Under Kieran's guidance, they were learning that different fighting styles could all be valuable. The gentle ones became excellent mediators. The aggressive ones channeled their energy into protecting the vulnerable. Even the unusual colors turned out to be advantages in certain terrains. "Luna Athena?" A soft voice interrupted her thoughts. She turned to find Elena Vasquez, a 19-year-old whose wolf was completely white, considered an omen of bad luck by her superstitious pack. Elena had arrived 3 months ago, convinced she was cursed. "What is it, Elena?" Athena asked gently. "I wanted to thank you," Elena said, tears in her eyes. "My white wolf. She's not cursed. She's gifted. I can sense illness in other wolves before any symptoms show. Dr. Chen says I'm a natural diagnostic healer." Athena's heart swelled with joy. This was why they'd built the sanctuary, to help wolves discover that their differences were actually gifts waiting to be unwrapped. "You were never cursed, sweetheart. You were just in the wrong place to shine." As evening approached, Athena made her way to the memorial garden they'd created for wolves who hadn't survived the rejection of their packs. Too many had given up before finding their true purpose. The garden served as both a reminder and a promise no more lost souls on their watch. Kieran found her there, sitting on their favorite bench with her hand on her belly. "Rough day?" he asked, settling beside her with a gentle grunt. Even the mighty Lycan king felt tired after training dozens of energetic teenagers. "Good day," she corrected. Elena discovered her gift. Marcus successfully mediated a territorial dispute between 2 rival families, and our little girl decided to practice her kicks during my morning meeting with the Council of Alphas. Kieran's hand joined hers on her stomach, and their daughter immediately calmed at her father's touch. She's going to be a peacemaker like her mother. "Or a warrior like her father," Athena countered with a smile. "Maybe both." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over their transformed territory. Where once only purebred wolves had been welcome, now dozens of different shifters called the Shadowmere lands home. Fox shifters, bear shifters who'd been too gentle for their clans, even a family of raven shifters who'd been persecuted for their unusual magic. "Do you ever miss it?" Kieran asked suddenly. "The simplicity of before, when you thought you knew who you were?" Athena considered the question seriously. "I miss the safety of low expectations," she admitted. "When everyone thought you were worthless, failure wasn't scary because it was expected. And now I have hundreds of wolves looking to me for hope. Sometimes that weight feels impossible to carry." She shifted, trying to find a more comfortable position. "But then I rem Athena, that little girl who stood on an auction platform, convinced she had no value. If I can give even one wolf the chance to discover their worth, it's all worthwhile," Kieran finished. "Exactly." A comfortable silence settled between them again, broken only by the distant sounds of pack life continuing around them. Children playing, adults sharing evening meals, elderly wolves sharing stories with the newcomers. "What do you think she'll be like?" Kieran asked, his hand moving in gentle circles on Athena's belly. "Strong," Athena said immediately, "but not in the way people expect. She'll be strong enough to be gentle when others want her to be harsh. strong enough to include when others want her to exclude. She'll change the world. She'll make it kinder, Athena agreed. One wolf at a time. As stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Athena felt a deep satisfaction settle in her bones. The girl who had once been sold for being broken now led hundreds of wolves who had found healing through acceptance. The curse that had plagued Kieran's bloodline was broken, but more importantly, the cycle of rejection and shame that created so much suffering was being transformed into something beautiful. Her daughter kicked again, and Athena laughed softly. Yes, little one, tomorrow we'll help more wolves find their way home. The future stretched ahead of them, full of challenges and possibilities in equal measure. But whatever came next, they would face it together, a pack built not on conformity, but on the revolutionary idea that every wolf deserved love, acceptance, and the chance to discover their unique gifts. The moon rose full and bright above them, blessing their transformed pack with silver light. In its glow, Athena's skin still shimmered faintly with moonfire magic, a reminder that sometimes what the world calls broken is actually just waiting for the right moment to shine.